Welcome in, everyone. Today, we're bringing you an explainer of the source material behind one of China's most chilling and honestly most enduring urban legends. We're looking at a story that completely blurs the line between a standard police investigation and an absolute, terrifying impossibility. We're going to break down the timeline, the evidence, and the bizarre witness accounts of a night that literally defied all logic. So grab a seat, get comfortable, and let's explore the unsolved mystery of Route 375, the midnight bus to Fragrant Hills. Okay, let's dive into this by starting right at the shocking climax of the police investigation. Imagine you're a police inspector, right? 2 days ago, a local city bus just vanishes, without a single trace. When you finally locate it, the vehicle hasn't just crashed, it's been found completely submerged in a canal, a staggering 100 kilometers away from its designated route. And well, when the crane finally pulls the wreckage from the murky water, the mechanical inspection reveals something that makes the investigators' blood run cold. The fuel tank isn't filled with diesel, no. It is filled entirely, right to the brim, with fresh blood. To figure out how we get to a bus running on human blood, we first need to look at the immediate aftermath of the recovery in Section 1, the impossible discovery. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer scale of the logistical contradictions the police faced here. Absolutely nothing about the physical reality of the recovered vehicle matched what was mechanically or physically possible. Look, Route 375 was a local route. It covered a maximum of 21 kilometers. The bus literally only held enough diesel in its tank to cover that short distance. Yet, there it is, found 100 kilometers away. Plus, investigators pulled all the CCTV footage along the surrounding roadways, and once the bus passed a certain point on its route, it vanished from all traffic cameras. It didn't trigger a single camera at any intersection, no fuel stations, nothing. It was almost as if the bus had just ceased to exist in the physical world, only to materialize in that distant canal. But the mechanical impossibilities were really just the beginning. When the coroner examined the 5 bodies recovered from the sunken bus, the timeline completely fractured. According to the autopsy reports from our source material, 3 of the bodies were strangers, men wearing highly unusual clothing, and their decomposition suggested they had been dead and submerged in water for weeks, maybe even months. The driver and the conductor were also examined. The coroner estimated they had been dead for over a week. But here is the terrifying paradox. Witnesses had spoken to that exact driver and conductor, seeing them perfectly alive and healthy just 2 days prior. So how exactly did a local bus end up in a canal with a tank full of blood and passengers who had seemingly been dead for months? To piece that together, we have to flash back. Section 2, the night of 1995. The source material paints a really atmospheric picture of that evening. It's November, right around 2 a.m. It's freezing out, there's a heavy fog reducing visibility to almost nothing, and this 22-year-old boy is shivering at the bus stop. Soon, an elderly woman with a walking stick joins him. Then, at 2:15 a.m., the final Route 375 bus to Fragrant Hills arrives, and they hop on. A few minutes down the road, a young couple flags the bus down and takes a seat right behind the driver. At this point, there are only 4 passengers, plus the driver and a female conductor. It is, by all accounts, a totally normal, albeit really dreary, late-night commute. So the bus is creeping along slowly because of this thick fog. The young boy is chilling, listening to his Walkman. The couple is nodding off. But the old woman? She's wide awake. Suddenly, the eerie silence of the empty roads is shattered by a heavy, aggressive thumping coming from the roof of the bus. The driver immediately slams on the brakes, hops out to check, and quickly rushes back in, looking visibly startled. He claims a stray cat jumped on the roof. But come on, a cat doesn't sound like heavy human footsteps. Clearly shaken, the driver erratically speeds up, ignores the main road, and takes a sudden dark shortcut toward the forest, claiming it's a safer route in the fog. And it's on this desolate, foggy shortcut near the forest that the mundane night really turns into a nightmare. Section 3, the strange passengers. And this brilliantly illustrates the stark contrast happening inside that vehicle. On one hand, you have totally ordinary people just trying to get home. On the other, you have the new arrivals. Out of the thick fog, 3 figures wave the bus down. The driver, completely against his better judgment, stops and lets them in. They're dressed in these archaic 18th century Qing dynasty robes. Their hair is long and unkempt. Their traditional hats are pulled way down low to obscure their faces. 2 of them are physically dragging the middle passenger, who is just completely limp. And the second they step on board, the entire bus fills with an overpowering, suffocating stench of rotting flesh. Naturally, the elderly woman is absolutely horrified. She whispers to the conductor, asking who on earth these people are and why they smell like actual death. The conductor, who's honestly probably trying to convince herself as much as the passengers, waves it off. She tells the old woman not to worry, claiming they're likely just actors from a local theater company who had a little too much to drink and didn't bother changing out of their historical costumes before heading home. But the old woman isn't buying it. Not for a second. Her instincts are screaming that something is deeply, deeply wrong. The tension in the bus at this point is palpable, and the old woman knows she has to get out of there. Section 4. The clever escape. As the bus rattles down this pitch-black road, a cold draft blows through an open window near the back. The wind catches the long, archaic robes of the three strange men. The old woman, who's been watching them like a hawk this whole time, sees the robes flutter upward. What she sees, or actually what she doesn't see, chills her right to the bone. Underneath those robes, there's nothing. The men literally have no legs. And as the middle man's hair shifts in the breeze, she realizes with absolute object terror that he has no face. She is in full panic mode now. She needs to alert someone, anyone. So she decides to try and subtly warn the conductor. She pulls a small compact mirror out of her purse, angling it to catch the conductor's attention without drawing the gaze of those things in the back. But as she looks into the glass, the seat where the conductor is sitting is totally empty in the reflection. The conductor has no reflection at all. Let's move to and see how this builds into an incredibly clever survival tactic. The old woman knows she can't just politely ask to get off in the middle of a dark, haunted forest. The entities would instantly know she's onto them. So she stands up and violently accuses the young boy across from her of stealing her purse. The boy, who was literally just listening to his music, is outraged. A massive, screaming fight breaks out between them. They are making such an incredible scene that the driver, absolutely furious, slams on the brakes and kicks them both off the bus, leaving them stranded in the middle of nowhere. As the bus drives away into the fog, the boy turns to yell at her, but she stops him dead in his tracks. She tells him there was no theft. She faked the entire thing to save both of their lives. The two of them immediately hike back to civilization and go straight to the nearest police station. They report the missing legs, the strange ancient clothes, the lack of a reflection, and the incredibly looming danger for the driver and the young couple who were still on board. The police, of course, think they are entirely crazy. They get dismissed for wasting police time with, quote, ghost stories, and are literally thrown out of the precinct. But that arrogant dismissal turns into sheer panic 2 days later, when the depot manager reports that Bus 375, its driver, its conductor, and the young couple vanished completely. Which brings us full circle back to that grotesque discovery in the canal. Section 5, an unsolved legend. So the crucial point is that despite a massive, widespread investigation, no logical answers were ever found. The police could never identify the three severely decomposed men in those 18th century robes. They could never explain the completely warped autopsy anomalies of the driver and conductor. And most baffling of all, mechanics, even to this day, cannot explain how a diesel engine could function, let alone travel 100 kilometers, while its tank was completely filled with blood. The story of Bus 375 cemented itself into local folklore, transforming from a bizarre police case file into one of China's most pervasive urban legends. Even today, locals traveling near Fragrant Hills claim that on cold, foggy nights, they can still see a phantom bus rumbling down the road. We are left with a story that defies every single law of physics and forensic science. Look, it is super easy to dismiss ghost stories as pure fiction, right? Just the product of overactive imaginations on a really dark night. But the physical, tangible evidence recovered from that canal challenges that comfort. So, I leave you with this. If the old woman's story was just a terrified hallucination, and the whole legend is just local folklore, how exactly did a local city bus travel 100 kilometers off its route on a fuel tank filled entirely with human blood? Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer of the Route 375 mystery. Stay curious, and we'll see you next time.